Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November 2015 CRL webinar on discovering CRL resources. My name is James Simon. I'm the Vice President for Collections and Services here at CRL, and I am just serving as a moderator for this one. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping announcements as you join in. You can sign in, of course, through the WebEx platform on the screen to see the slides as we present them, and you can tune in through voice over IP if you have that capacity on your computer. Otherwise, you can dial into the phone number that we provided. If you should suffer any audio problems on your computer, you can try dialing in with the number that we gave you. That might help resolve any of the issues that you have. We have muted everybody who has joined us today, and we have a number of participants already joining in. We've muted all of the phones and mics on entry to cut down on the background noise, and those will remain muted throughout the presentation. So we do invite you and encourage you to submit questions or comments through the WebEx platform in the chat screen. You should see it on the right-hand side of your screen. There's a chat function or the Q&A. Feel free to type your questions in there, and we'll make sure we get to those during the course of the presentation over the next hour or so. Or if you need any clarification, we'll make sure that we feed those to the presenter. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Amy Wood, who's the Director of Technical Services here at CRL. She's been here at CRL for quite some time, heading both the cataloging, acquisition, digitization unit, our technical analysis unit. And she will be presenting the Discovering CRL resources over the course of the next hour. Amy, take it away.
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased that you've joined us for the webinar, Discovering CRL Resources. CRL has a wealth of resources to support a wide range of scholarly research and teaching needs. Our goal today is to give a broad overview of tools or services to help your patrons find and discover CRL's resources in order to do the work that they need. And a second goal is, I think, to spark a relationship with you, to really work together to configure your systems in the best way to help your patrons find CRL resources. And in fact, last spring, I think that was one of the reasons why we thought of offering this, is we had an extensive conversation with the University of Cincinnati and about their discovery service. And in the course of that, we discovered that one of the discovery service providers had actually indexed CRL resources incorrectly. So it is really working with you that we can provide the best service to the patrons and really understand what's going on in their eyes. So we have a brief agenda here. We'll cover I wanted to give a little overview of CRL's collection, not from the typical collections point of view of some of our other webinars, but in a way that would help you understand how to best configure your systems, or to understand different tools or exactly what your patrons should be looking for, maybe not from a topic or a subject point of view, but from an understanding of other aspects of the collection. So we'll also cover the CRL Catalog as a source for finding CRL resources, Worldcat, and we'll talk about record loading and different consortial borrowing methods, and also talk about, of course, the discovery layers. As I've looked at the various instances of the discovery layers over the past few months, it seemed to me that a lot of the configuration was very similar. So instead of just calling out Primo or Summon or something like that for each of the slides, I thought we would just go through, kind of identify some of the best practices or tips, general ones that apply to all of the systems or the services, and things that I think everyone can do. So to start with, an overview of CRL's collection. CRL has about 1.4 million records in its catalog. All of those records are also contributed to Worldcat, and all of those records are available to you for record loading in your local systems, your local ILS, and they are all of those records are made available to all of the major discovery services. But I thought that this was a nice slide to start with, because I think it might be a bit of a surprise to some of our members that such a large portion of the collection is our physical resources, because certainly I think our electronic resources get a lot of attention, and we have put a great deal of effort into expanding the electronic resources that we have for our members. But the reality is, in trying to find the CRL resources, particularly trying to find them through the discovery layers, what you will be looking for is most likely in a physical form, and those are hard to find in the discovery layers, or at least it's been my experience that there actually can be quite difficult to find. So that's something to understand when you are configuring your systems. So here's a sort of a further breakdown of those physical resources. You can see the largest selection is, or the largest section is our dissertation collection, a little over 800,000 titles. The next section, of course, is our monographs and serials and newspapers. And despite the small size of that little slice for the newspapers are really a very important collection of CRLs. And about 40% of those are unique titles, or held, and much more are held by only 5 or fewer libraries. So, and I think the newspapers are particularly even harder group to find within these discovery layers than just physical resources in general. So I would encourage you to do whatever you can with your systems to really and test and target in finding CRL's newspaper collection. It's of great importance to your patrons, and it's a small group in there, and it's particularly hard to find in your systems. So here's just an overview of the various languages and countries that you'll find resources for at CRL. Overall, there are about 240 different languages represented in our resources, and about 230 different countries, but these are the top 12 of each of those. And you can see that, at least in terms of the languages, English is right at the top. So despite the wide variety of offerings that CRL has, the majority of the material is accessible to just English language speakers. So there's a great deal to offer here to your average patron. And we don't need to go back to the last slide, but I should add that there was a high number of German and Latin and French language resources, and those are due to our dissertation collection. And this is just, this slide just shows the comparison of the distribution of the publication date by century across the non-dissertation collection. In this one, I wanted to pull out the dissertation collection because of its size, it can often overwhelm our understanding of the overall collection. So in this case, I pulled it out, although I suspect that the dissertation collection has a similar distribution as the non-dissertation collections. But you can see that most of our resources are from the 19th and the 20th century. The 19th being that very large rectangle on the left, and then the 20th century being the very large one, and the 19th being the yellow one in the top right. And this slide shows sort of a work in process or in progress. We are in the process of reviewing our holdings in Worldcat against our member libraries. we wanted to have an understanding of exactly how much of our collection was unique or rarely held among our members, because we know that many more libraries throughout the world may hold the resource, but it's not accessible to you. And so we're just under 1 million at this point, but you can see here the results that about 40% are unique to CRL, and about 75% are held by 5 or fewer libraries, and including those unique titles too. So I suspect that the last 5 million, or sorry, 500,000 that we'll be researching will have a similar distribution, but I think this is very interesting and good for you to know as you are configuring your systems or you're helping your patrons find our resources. In particular, if you use Worldcat, it can be a challenge. I think you think that it would be an obvious thing to be able to find a record that has only one holding library, but I think it can be a challenge as we're searching for things, and the frequency in which it's returned sometimes is influenced by how often it's used. And access to CRL's collection, I think it was great to be able to start with CRL's catalog. I think even though it's not an up-to-date, or it's not a sort of a modern discovery layer type catalog, I think we'd call it a classic catalog. That's what I see on most of your websites. But I think it's really the best way of understanding our collection. So this is maybe not something that your patrons would be doing, but something that you might be interested in doing, in understanding our collection better to help them. This is really, I think, the best way to get to know our collection, because everything that we have, everything cataloged is in this collection, or in the catalog as it is in Worldcat. But we've added some. So the top part that is just circled there, that's the thing that's the tool that you would use to actually search the collections to understand what titles we have and the holdings that we have. That the bottom section is, while it doesn't search our actual catalog, I think it's really useful for you to know and to explore, because it provides a lot more information, more in-depth information about very particular resources or groups of resources that will help you both search the catalog to find other things and also just to help your patrons. So here's just a close-up of our catalog, and you can see our catalog search form, and you can see that we have provided a number of scopes to help you break down the collection or narrow your searches to get exactly what you want. And in part, I think we did this after we had finished cataloging the dissertation collection, because as I said before, it can overwhelm the searches that you do. So I'll just highlight a couple of the scopes that have particular search tools. And this first one is for our newspapers. And I think we developed this page in response to member requests for people were asking for, could we have a list of all of your newspapers from Algeria or different parts of the world? And we thought that's not necessarily something that is easy to do on your own. So we created these tools to help you do that, and that's in that second box underneath the main search part. And then the third box highlights our ethnic newspaper collection, which is a really unique and wonderful collection that CRL has. And then the last box is a search tool just for the Civilian Conservation Corps newspapers, another unique resource. The next scope is for our dissertation collection. And when there was a lot of excitement, I think, after we cataloged this collection. And again, we were getting the kind of really big requests for, what are all the dissertations you have in from a certain country or from a certain institution. And those were because of the large number of results that they would, that a broad search like that would pull back or present you with. Patrons were actually limited in what they could receive through in the search results they could receive through the catalog. So we set up this tool that allows you to choose the country and then a particular institution of interest. And I think this is a particularly good tool if you have dissertations that you were thinking about depositing with CRL. So access to CRL's collections via loading CRL records into your catalogs. I think this may be the most effective way you have of making CRL resources discoverable to your patrons, particularly if you know that the use of your catalog is high among your patrons. This really is the best way to bring our resources to their attention. We offer quarterly updates of the records. You can get both new and updated records, or you can reload all of the records. We have you can load all 1.4 million records into your catalog, or you can create custom record groups. I think we have about 50 members that load our records into their catalogs, and most of them, I have to say, just load the records for the e-resources. But we have perhaps 4 or 5 that load all of the records, and I think that the most efficient way of doing this, or the best way for you, is if you can load all of the records again each time. Then you have the best batch of records that we have. The records you can just pick them up off of CRL's FTP server. We keep them up. We put them up quarterly. We refresh them quarterly and keep those files up for the whole quarter until the next load. So it's really at your convenience that you can download them. And if you are interested in getting a sample file of records, I have the contact person's name up here, Jocelyn Wiesma. Just go ahead and send her an email and ask for a sample file. And if you know the type of records that you're interested in, whether just the e-resources, or if you want everything, or you just want some newspapers, something like that, then just go ahead and let her know that. I think one of the, I think this is, this file is from Grinnell College, and I give a shout out to them because I think they've always been very supportive of CRL. But I think they were early, they loaded CRL records early on. So, and I think that they still have one of the best displays of our records in their catalog. So they, in this case, I chose an e-resource record, and they have a link for the online version that goes directly to our digital delivery system, as well as they have a link to their ILL form, their local ILL form, to request the original material if that's what's desired. So they've configured their system to work both with our online resources and our physical resources, and keeping the patrons going throughout or guiding them through the whole the process of requesting material from CRL, I think is really the most successful way of helping them get the CRL resources. CRL also supports a number of consortial borrowing systems. We supply our records to them in a variety of ways, and these are the 4 that we support, but we're happy to support others if there are others that you're using. I think the InReach and Rapid ILL drive quite a bit of traffic to CRL, and I think in part that's because they deal of the way the records are loaded and into their central index, but they offer, I think, the most immediate or the fastest turnaround for us. We've certainly seen the most use with them. The main consideration, I think, with these systems and ways in which I think we need to work more with you is that I think the key to the success of these systems is in their in the granular metadata that's available for the systems. Particularly, they all, I think, are dependent on holdings information. Borrow Direct maybe less so because that's mostly for books, but all of the ones that are focused on the serials in the newspapers really depend on that item level granular information. And CRL does have over 3,130,000 item records attached to its 1.4 million bib records, but not all of our bibliographic resources have item records. So there is sometimes a disconnect in our ability to support these systems fully, but that's when our sort of traditional ways of communicating with you and working with you to help you understand our holdings kicks in. I'm sure if there are any questions about what our holdings are, our Access Services Department is always on hand to explain those. And I think at least over the past decade or 12 years, CRL has made a huge investment in creating this item level granular data to support these kinds of systems, and we hope to continue that kind of investment. Of those over 3 million item records that I mentioned, 92% of them were either created or modified after 2002. So we do have an understanding of how important this granular data is in supporting these borrowing services and making the resources discoverable to you. So here, this is where I'm sort of beginning those tips on how to configure the systems or how to help us communicate to the patrons, because I think of course, one of the points of having these systems is not just the speedy delivery of material, which is of course important, but it's also that a lot of the work is unmediated. They don't need to talk to someone to do it. And so the notes that we have available or the link text that we have available in these systems is extremely important. And so I pulled this one example up of Borrow Direct and was pleased to see that the Center for Research Libraries is right there to let people know that our resources are available to the patrons through this service. But then when I started going through the system and digging around in more information through it, I found that we weren't consistently mentioned. So here we were on the front page, but when you went down into more information that explained how the service works, we were dropped off. So that's my sort of first hint about configuring your systems today and making sure that our material is discoverable by your patrons is don't forget to keep putting CRL on all of the information pages that you have about your systems. If the patrons aren't talking to the librarians in order to borrow things, we hope that they're at least reading all of the information pages. So the next example of the consortial borrowing systems is for InReach. InReach is very dependent on the item records. Actually, if you send a request, if you want to request multiple pieces from the same title, you actually, I think, have to make the request for each item that you want to borrow. So there's not a single request. So, and you make that request, that unmediated request, with the item record. And so it's important to have those on there. And so I found a not untypical or not atypical record of CRLs, but so you can see that we have extensive holdings for this title, lots of different call numbers, and we traditionally, really before 2002, we recorded our holdings in that Mark 590 field and didn't utilize the item records so much. But in this case, we do have both. But you can see that's why that Mark 590 field is so extensive. So this is the example of what it looks like in CRL's catalog, online catalog. The next slide shows what it looks like in the InReach system. And I think the makeup of this slide, or the display of this record in this system, shows how important those item records are, because you only see the tiniest bit of bibliographic information at the top, title and imprint, I think, and then you go right into what the holdings are. And below the holdings, then you'll see the rest of the bibliographic record. But I think the placement in the record, while it is a local configuration, I think it speaks to how important this information is, and how important it is that we provide that to you in an understandable way. So the next example I have is a CRL record that shows our holdings in the 590, but there are no meaningful item records. We have sort of a blank item record there at the bottom, but that's not, as I said, what you would normally use to request material from an InReach system. So my point in showing you this is not so much to be negative as is that we recognize that there are a number of challenges in getting the information about our resources to your patrons, and this is one of those instances where we need to work with you to explain to the patron what exactly we have. Because so here's what the resource looks like in the CRL catalog, but when you look at the same record in the InReach catalog, there are simply no holdings listed. It's because the InReach Central catalog doesn't utilize the 590 field. I suspect it strips out a number of the 5XX fields, just not to overwhelm the central catalog with a lot of notes from various contributors. So this is a case where, hopefully, if the patron were interested in this in this record, they would come to you and ask if you had more information about what CRL's exact holdings are. And of course, the best thing would be to either to look in our online catalog to see what we have, or to call our Access Services department. So I have another example of the consortial borrowing systems, the Uborrow. This, as you can see, also utilizes the item records, which is great. You can see exactly what CRL has. In this case, the only thing I thought was difficult for the patron, and I'm hoping that this is a local configuration choice that maybe can change, is that there's no obvious it's not obvious how you borrow the resource or whether or not the resource is available. Unlike with the InReach system, it would tell you or tell the patron if the item of interest was checked out. Here it doesn't. There isn't anything to indicate what the availability is, or even a link to a way to borrow it. And I'm not sure. I'd be glad to hear from you if this is something that is, is made available via IP recognition or something. So if your patron were on campus, would they be able to see this availability information or how to borrow? If not, I think it's definitely worth exploring adding that functionality to this system. So in the next section, access to CRL's collection via the discovery services. So these, so I've listed all of the discovery services that CRL provides records to. I have to say we don't know. We make the records available to these services, but we don't have a way of checking to see if they have actually downloaded and loaded the records that we provide. So that's I think a case where we would like to work with you to understand more about what you see on your end, or if you're seeing much increase in what's available to you over time through one of these services. So I just have a few recommendations for configuring these discovery services, and I make the recommendations with the with full understanding that I was viewing these systems through the eyes of a patron. You know far more about your configuration and what is possible than I certainly do. And that's why, as I mentioned before, when we worked with the University of Cincinnati, it was extremely helpful, I think, for both of us to understand when there was actually something wrong, when their discovery service had indexed something incorrectly. So I'll just kind of quickly go through the recommendations, but then we'll have different examples of them as we a little bit later. So this first one was actually a bit of a surprise to me. Most of the configurations of the system look very similar, I think, and it seems to me over the past year they've gotten more similar than unique than I think the way they started out. But I did find one where they had a single, it was as if the system had Ferberized the records. So there was a single title record with all the associated formats, and I thought that was great, and certainly the best configuration that I had seen. But clearly distinguishing formats with eye-catching icons and predictable link text is extremely helpful. Providing links to the catalog record as well as our document delivery service for the electronic resources is very important. Often we'll see that even though it shows the record will show that there's an electronic resource available, the link from where it says electronic text or something will send the patron to the catalog record rather than directly to the document delivery service that we offer. And for physical resources, linking the patron directly to your local ILL system, I think is extremely important for guiding them through the process of requesting something from us when they may not know much about us at all. And if you can, provide CRL's name in the source of the resource in the records. I think that's while I'm not sure that is of great importance for the first item that patrons borrow from CRL, but I'm hoping that that doing something like that, of putting CRL's name in the record or right up there, will have long-term benefits. That if we provide the resource that they need in a timely way and with a good experience, that over time perhaps they will begin to limit some of their searches to us, or choose us if they have more than one source to choose from in borrowing material. And last, any facets or ways that you can add to refine the searches based on what you know about CRL's collection and what may be difficult to find in CRL's collection, I think is extremely helpful to the patron. So this slide is that example of that best display of title. I think this is great, and this was, as I said, this is the only example I've seen of this, although I haven't searched all 200 plus members, but this one is certainly, I think, the best, and gets my smiley face. I think this instance of this discovery service, or the configuration, I think is extremely helpful. Right from the title links directly to more information that you would get from the catalog record. And to me, it looks like they've pulled in almost all of the information from the catalog, and I think this is great. So here you can see that the material is from CRL. You can see the link of which you can find the material, so you're not dependent on clicking through through the system if this is of interest, or the patron needs to reference this for some reason. So not only, I think, was this best for the best configuration for bringing together multiple formats, but I think the way they provide information, the bibliographic information, I think is quite nice. And then I've just circled that one part that shows the information about CRL. And outside of being able to Ferberize or pull the multiple formats together under the same umbrella title, having sort of eye-catching icons, I think, is a big help to helping patrons distinguish between the different formats. And I think this is particularly helpful although this particular resource that I chose is rather unique, and most of the time the different formats came up in the search results right next to each other. When I was doing some searching, it was not unusual to have the records for different formats for the same title appear not next to each other. So you'd have a couple of other unrelated titles in between them. So having these clearly defined visual icons, I think, is very, very helpful for being able to quickly decide which item you want. And I gave a little bonus shout out to this one on the left, because it might be a little bit difficult to see, but they do mention CRL as the resource, the library of resource, the source of the material. And as I was going through all the slides, a couple of people told me we needed a little relief from all the catalog records. So here is just a nice picture to enjoy from that beautiful palm paintings. Just time to relax. So this next example is just to show, just to make the point that using separate links for title and the full text when there is full text available, I think is really the best thing to do. In this example, both the title link and that link that says full text online actually link to a catalog record. The one on the top to the one on the right that you see, the full text online, linked to CRL's catalog record, which would just mean that the patron, if they were still interested, would have to click through to our document delivery service. So the best thing, I think, would be to, plus I think it can just be confusing for patrons who are expecting to get a digital resource, but then just to come to another catalog after it says full text online. So I think the best thing to do in the configuration is if you can provide a link to the catalog record and a link to the full text online. And this is example 4 shows, I think, a newspaper title. And this one I found quite difficult to find in all of the different instances of the discovery services. And I suppose it's because there are not a lot of words in the title, and the words that are there are fairly common. And the fact that it's also a newspaper is extremely difficult. I was competing with all of the indexed articles, but there are many reasons why your patrons may want to borrow a reel of microfilm or have us digitize a reel of microfilm for them rather than just looking at a collection of indexed articles. We receive many requests, probably every week, for many reels of microfilm for newspapers, and people want to be able to search through years of a single title. And so being able to pull up a newspaper title and not just the indexed articles, I think, is extremely important. And I finally hit on the way to do this in this instance, where there was a tool to help refine by excluding the newspaper articles, and I thought that was great, because there were other ones where I was trying to refine by just unclicking a newspaper for a content type, and that I found confusing, because I knew I was looking for a newspaper, so to unclick newspaper was sort of went against what I thought should happen. But a refinement like this, where you can exclude newspaper articles or exclude journal articles, I think is extremely important for finding CRL resources, because even the material that we've digitized, we've digitized several issues of a newspaper, it's not going to come up. The electronic resource is not going to come up under the indexed articles. And so this next example is another newspaper, and this one was even more difficult to find. But I finally did, with the help of there was a facet for the resource, for the source of the content, and that was the Center for Research Libraries. So I think this helps an extraordinary amount, especially if your patrons are familiar with CRL. This next one, I sort of had mixed feelings about this, example 6. And the example is titled "Create Link Text That Encourages Use." I think this link is configured just right, in that it takes you directly to the document delivery system that we have, and that's what's on the bottom of the system. But the link text to me seems confusing. It says "View record in the Center for Research Libraries." Or by the Center for Research Libraries, and I found that very confusing, because the link actually takes you to the resource itself, And so I thought that that view record would actually be a little discouraging. It doesn't jump out at you that it's an electronic resource. And in fact, the icon next to it just says dissertation or thesis, and it doesn't give you an indication that it's an electronic resource. So this next part is focused on Worldcat, and I kept this one separate from the other discovery services because I think the configuration is a little bit different. The example that I have is from one of our members who added CRL to its group affiliation. And this is extremely helpful. As you can see in the search that I did right there at the top, it indicates right away that this resource is available from the Center for Research Libraries. And if we were not added as a group affiliate, that would just look, it would just indicate that the resource was available through Worldcat, through a Worldcat library. But this group affiliation, that's what makes us stand out like that. And the next slide is just, again, just to show how, as you click through through the title to see multiple formats, to see the records for the different multiple formats, the information about the provider follows you through to there. So you can see in the oval on the side, the Center for Research Libraries is still shown prominently, so your patrons know where the material is coming from. The OCLC's Worldcat Discovery Service also offers that item level availability and information that those consortial borrowing systems have, and I think this is terrific. And as I said, we'll continue to put our resources into making more and more of this information available for all of our resources. But this information is taken in sort of real time, right from our catalog. So they're not dependent on us loading or providing records to load or anything. That comes directly through from our system. But just, again, with a caution that all of our records don't have item level information available in this way, just in the 590s. However, all of our holdings are available in Worldcat in the local holdings record. So, you would certainly be able to find that information before requesting the material. And this next slide shows, again, how even with the electronic resources, the group affiliation helps bring the resource from CRL up closer to the top. Again, if we had not been configured as part of their group affiliation, these links would have dropped down to just a general Worldcat library. So, having sort of done this very, sort of high-level overview of these different instances of the discovery services, and looking to see how people are configuring their systems, and looking to see what some of the better things that were there, I thought there were just a number of things that came together to me in terms of what are challenges, and I guess both challenges and opportunities for working with you in the future to bring CRL's resources to your patrons. There's, I think, not enough can be said about the importance of metadata and creating granular and discoverable data about the collection. The systems that push the granular data rather than just the item pushes the item records, not just the bib data, is certainly, I think, among the best ways of helping your members know exactly what we have in our collection. And in terms of borrowing, working with you on any services or systems that you have for unmediated borrowing, how to work through various problems with you when the data or the system itself can't answer the question is important, and making patrons or helping patrons understand what some of the other services that CRL has related to the collection, how to help them know what we do, because a lot of the systems, particularly the consortial borrowing, are meant to borrow a physical item, but it's our preference whenever we can to digitize that item and deliver it digitally. So this is an area I think that needs more exploration, more development, and a greater understanding among your patrons is that just because something exists now in physical form doesn't mean in 5 days we can't give it to you in digital form. So, and then the final thing, I think, my final challenge is making patrons aware of our demand purchase program. I'm sure many of you have acquisitions programs where things are purchased on demand, and I think our patrons are not utilizing the services that we offer in this way. So we'd like to continue to work with you on this, and I just have one sort of final slide to show with this, and I thought since we were talking about challenges, I thought I would show a challenge display. This is this display in this discovery service needed a lot of help. There was a title encoding problem, so you couldn't read. You could read the English version of the title, but not the vernacular. There was misleading text that made it seem as though there was no electronic version available, and then no link to the resource on the results page. So this one was just included just as a little lighthearted note at the end. And then our final slide is the resources. All right, I forgot, we have questions. We have time for questions and discussion.
We do. We have a few minutes available to us to answer some of the questions that you may have. This is James, and I remind you to submit them via the chat screen, and we'll take them as we can get them. We did have a few questions come in, and Amy, you were talking about making the patrons aware that we can digitize on request. A question related to that was, what happens to those digital scans once we do them? Are they available to other CRL members afterwards?
All of the scans that we create on demand are available to all of our members. So when a patron puts in a request for material and we scan it, we deliver it through, we store it on our servers, that we store the digital version here on our servers, and make the scans available to all CRL members through our digital delivery service.
And there's more information about that on our website as well, under our digital collections. We had a basic question, I think, is CRL presents its material, it makes its records available for ingest into all of these discovery tools. For all of the institutions that are using those discovery tools, are those automatically included in their discovery layer? Do they have to do something to turn those on?
To my knowledge, you do not have to do anything to turn them on. There is, I think, and I have been assured by OCLC reps that we shouldn't have to do that all of the records in Worldcat should be visible through the discovery service. We do know that there are some OCLC configuration problems that have prevented some of the resources from being visible, And this was one of them, I think, was that the way they were configuring things, they were preferring titles or items that had many holding libraries. So things that were unique were not rising to the top. And it's something we're continuing to work with OCLC on. We have talked about pulling together a group of our members in the case that we do need to do some testing or to do some more closer looking at this. But I actually have a call scheduled with OCLC tomorrow to continue the conversation. So we are working hard to resolve any of those issues.
Good. A participant asked whether we share our electronic resource records in the OCLC knowledge base. And it wasn't, there was some questions up to how those render in there. One of the participants said they see some microfilms collections in the knowledge base, but they don't include the title level detail.
This is another case where we were told that we did not need to do anything special to make the collections available through the knowledge base. I'll bring this particular question to the rep tomorrow when I talk with them, though, just to see where we are in resolving this, because we shouldn't, according to them, we should not have to do anything special. But they are acknowledging that there has been a lot of trouble in making CRL records visible in the knowledge base.
One final question, perhaps. You talked about having the members give you some more information or to communicate with us if they're seeing strange things within their discovery layer or within their configuration. Do you have any suggestions on how what the participants here might do in order to help us help them?
I do think that we try very hard to respond to our member needs, and I think we are certainly open to having another webinar or more webinars that focus simply on a single discovery service, and invite some of you to present or talk about your local configurations, because you are far more knowledgeable about that side of it. So I think that's one option of certainly having another webinar, a series of webinars targeted at a discovery service. The other one is I'm just happy to work one-on-one with any of you about this.
Great. Well, thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. You said you had maybe one final slide?
Oh, no, just the, well, yes, just a couple of resources, emails that you can follow up on, and an information page link about our record loading.
Thank you, Amy, for this very informative presentation. This is Virginia Kerr at CRL. Thanks to all of you as well for participating today. This webinar has been recorded and will be available soon on our YouTube channel. We'll send a note to all who registered for the webinar to let you know when the recording is available. And then I'd like to remind you of an upcoming event that has just been published with the registration just now available. A webinar in January, Perpetual Access, Myth and Reality. At that time, a panel will be assessing how effective publishers' efforts to date are likely to be in ensuring long-term access to scholarly materials. This should be a very interesting webinar. Be sure to share this information with all collections managers at your institutions. As you log out today, you'll see a survey assessing this webinar. Your feedback is very important to us in improving our programming for the future, and particularly recommending topics that we can cover with future webinars. Please make sure you stay in touch with CRL. Make sure you're subscribed to CRL Connect, an e-newsletter which comes out every 2 to 3 weeks. We try not to bombard you too much. And of course, there's the CRL website, which has a great deal of information. Amy had, in her resources, mentioned there's a URL there for a page which has some basic information on record loading and web discovery services, and we will probably expand that information in the future. You can also follow CRL on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks very much.